It's time for the Ward Scott Files, hosted by John Martin. Join the Salty Dog and his captain, Ted Yoho. Search for the Ward Scott Files on Facebook, Vimeo, and over 30 audio platforms, including Apple and Spotify. Now here's your host, the Salty Dog, John Martin.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Ted Yoho and my pirate ship, the Ward Scott Files. Ted is going to try to join us. He's all the way out on the left coast, as we like to call it. He's in California, and he's attending a funeral out there later today. So he may be joining us. I'm not quite sure, but we will persevere. You know, when the captain is busy, then his first mate, so to speak, the old Salty Dog here, has to jump up to it. Well, we're going to start out today talking about the Florida Gators, man, just really quickly. How about my Gators, man? I mean, Ted and I both are graduates of the University of Florida, so you'll have to excuse us if this doesn't mean much to you. But for us, we got to brag just a little bit. But our Gators, if you didn't see, Monday night won the national title, beating the great University of Houston in a memorable, incredible game. Came back in the last few seconds of the game and won it. And let's see, now University of Florida, and I have to do a little bragging, we're the only university, major school, that has won 3 national titles in football and now 3 in basketball. So point of personal privilege, go Gators. Now we'll move on to something that should concern all of us, and that is the tariffs. The tariffs are making news again. Of course, as we said on our show last Monday, and by the way, we're on live every Monday and Friday from 9 to 10. Wherever you're watching this right now, we're on there live from 9 to 10. So check it out. Please spread the word. We're growing all the time, and we are very grateful. But in case you hadn't heard, there was literally activity overnight. China has risen their tariffs, lifted their tariffs up higher in retaliation against us. And it seems to be, even though we have some tariffs and issues with other countries, it's basically become a tit for tat, if you will, with China. Now, some people, there you go. There's the chairman, there's the president of China, Mr. Xi, reading, and I'm sure that picture is probably false, but it's a pretty cool picture nonetheless. He should have been, if he hadn't already, reading The Art of the Deal, because that is what we are definitely in. We are in the art of the deal, trying to prevent what China is all about, the art of the steal. Well, you know, if you look at it, some people, and I did a little short on this. I've been doing some shorts on Wednesday, little 10-minute clippets of kind of get us between shows. But I talked about, you know, the tariffs that day. And, of course, the stock market rose to one of the biggest, if not the biggest days in its history on Wednesday. And then Thursday, yesterday, it dipped back down a little bit, but then it rallied somewhat, and it was still down slightly, which was to be expected when you consider that people are going to take profits and all of that kind of stuff. And, of course, the president said in a Mar-a-Lago dinner over last weekend, he said, I know what the HE double hockey sticks I'm doing. And I would say he absolutely does. And we need to trust in our president. But Ted has written a editorial, and is supposed to appear in the Hill. I don't think it's been published yet. But in that editorial, he talks about these tariffs, and he talks about that Donald Trump is going where no man has gone before, using a Star Trek thing. And it looks like Ted may be getting ready to chime in on it. Let's see if he can come in. Do we have? Okay.
I am here.
Ted, good morning. I was just talking about you. I hope your ears were ringing.
Yeah, they were.
I think we got you only on audio at the moment, but that's all right. That's one of your best features, right?
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Well, I was actually just talking about, and of course, I'll bring you in on this before. I talked about our Gator National champions, so congratulations. I hope while you're out there in California, you'll sport a Gator shirt every now and then.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We're talking about the tariff follow up, and I was just mentioning that, and I know you were traveling all yesterday. You may not have seen this, but overnight, China bumped up the tariffs again on us. No big surprise there. But I was just talking a little bit about an editorial that you've submitted to the Hill publication. I don't know if that has been published yet. Has it?
I haven't seen it yet. I've been traveling all day yesterday, got in late last night in California. I'll let you know when it is. And if not, you're the first to get it, John.
Well, I read over it. It's excellent, of course, no surprise. But I just was talking about how, Donald Trump said at Mar-a-Lago the other day at a dinner that he knows what the HE double hockey sticks he's doing. And I would agree with that 100%. But I referenced in your editorial that you quoted, and man, you're going straight to the heart for me because I am a diehard Star Trek fan, where you said where no man has gone before. And I was just about to expand on that, but since you put that phrase in there, what did you mean by that?
You don't get to a $1.3 trillion or $1.2 trillion trade deficit by luck. You do it by negligence, ignorance, or you got some other ulterior motive. And as he said, all these other presidents had this opportunity. It's the same thing he did with foreign aid. Everybody talked about, there's fraud, waste, and abuse in there. Well, by God, he did something about it. And it's the same thing with the tariffs. He said, there's all these problems with it. We need to get rid of it. And it's not to punish these other nations. It goes back to what George Washington said: honest, open, and free trade with all nations. And this is his opening salvo, and it's got people's attention. And China will lose this war. They're in economic hard times. They're overextended around the world. And the manufacturers are leaving left and right out of China. And there's going to be more of them. And that's going to drive their economic engine down. And so the tariffs are a way to adjust our trade with nations. It's like, I think we talked about last week, Brazil sends ethanol here, no tariffs on it. We send ethanol to Brazil, they charge us 18%. If we're going to be trading partners, if you got something I want, let's trade for it, and this is an adjustment that's way overdue. And the thing in my editorial I wanted to point out, you've got all these people that supported the mandate of Donald Trump coming in overwhelmingly. He told you since the 80s, the tariffs we were getting taken advantage of in this country. And then he moved further to do something about it. And so all these people that supported the agenda, they get him in there, they're rah, we're Trump, Trump, Trump. Now he does something that's a little bit painful. And that's why I made the reference to an exercise program. You go to the doctor, he says you're overweight, your heart's not working right, you got all these problems. Let's get on an exercise program. And so that's what Trump has done. He's put our nation on an exercise program. And now we're in the second or third day of the exercise program, and our muscles are screaming at us because the lactic acid buildup. And all these people are like, well, I don't think we should do this, and they get soft and weak kneed, and they got jelly spines, and, they're just weak of back and they're weak of heart. And it really shows who they are. They're not sticking with a guy that's leading this nation. We've not had a leader like this ever in my lifetime. And, this is where you stay tough and you work through the pain, and it'll be better when we come out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, right before you were able to come on, I showed a picture. Of course, it's AI generated, but it's got the President Z reading The Art of the Deal. There it is right there. Again,
I saw that.
If he didn't read it, I bet he's been reading it now, because President Trump, man, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. The man is a genius. He's playing chess where others are playing checkers. And, I don't know if you saw this, because I know, like I say, you've been traveling, but China has now had to admit, not like in a big open way, but kind of behind the scenes, that they attacked our grid a few years ago, probably still are, that they have been doing sabotage and espionage against us. Now, this is a pretty open secret. Everybody really knows that. But, the reason I bring that up is because we have obvious reasons to be in some type of trade war or cautious about China, but really the whole world does as well. So I got to believe that behind the scenes, a lot of these countries who may even be verbally bashing us a bit are kind of rooting for us against China. Wouldn't you think, Ted?
No, I think you're absolutely right. And again, you brought out a point that a lot of people are overlooking. It's the threat from China. Their number one goal is to take over the world militarily and economically, and they're doing that. I mean, they've got a navy that's rivaling ours. It's going to be more modern. When you look at armaments, missiles, hypersonics, things like that, they're way above us by factors, double-digit factors. And so China is doing the espionage. We're doing the espionage. They've hacked into our systems, and the systems they've hacked into is our financial, our telecommunications, our banking systems, our utility systems, talking about electricity, water, sewer, air traffic control. So they're embedded everywhere. All they're waiting for is the right signal to do that. It'll be mayhem in this country. And then, God forbid they or one of their proxies like Kim Jong-un or Iran does an EMP in our country, in our major metropolitan areas. The grid goes down, and you guys can read, the listeners, they're smart enough to know when the grid goes down, what's going to happen in this country. And there's a lot of books out there that talk about it. Some predict 80 to 90% of Americans would be dead within a year if the power grids go off in the major retail or major industrial or urbanized area. That's not fear mongering. That's just the facts. People like Ted Koppel put out a book. I think it's called 1 Second After. And so we all hope this never happens, but we all have to be cautious. And if China keeps taking advantage of us, President Trump is getting their attention more so than any other president I've seen. Biden was a joke. Obama was a joke. Trump in his first term was learning the tactics that he needed to use. But the Democrats stayed after him 100% of the time, and they're trying to do it again. But we've still got the majority. I don't have a light on, but the light is starting to come up.
The sun is rising in California. I can see that, Ted.
Yeah.
Well, as you're talking, it's kind of like the light is hitting, because that's what we're trying to do, shed a light on this. And I got a piece of interesting news yesterday. Back when I had my own show, John Martin Talks, I had a YouTube channel, and I got banned from YouTube. And one of the reasons why, and now they've unbanned me, Ted. They've unbanned me. I appealed it. I don't have much up there yet, but one of the reasons why they banned me is because when Biden got elected, I actually said, well, he is absolutely not the president of the United States. And I said in it that I'm not talking about votes. I'm talking about the man we're seeing in front of the camera is not capable of being the president of the United States. Someone else is doing it. I wasn't even talking about Trump should have won or whatever. I was just saying that man is not president. There's no way. And of course, they banned me for that. But now I guess like a lot of even his inner circle are having to admit that I was right all along. That guy was never actually a functioning president.
It is funny how they're all running to that narrative that he wasn't running the country. I mean, it's pretty well known. I thought you might have said a dirty word like poop or something.
Yeah, I hear you. But I don't know, we haven't really had a chance to talk much, so I don't know if you've seen this, but President Trump from the Oval Office the other day, he made, of course, he's just knocking it out of the park with his cabinet meetings and all of that. I mean, he had one yesterday that was just off the chain. And as far as good and just being so transparent, it's unbelievable. But President Trump, I love when he was asked by a reporter if he was going to use this opportunity to organize an effort against China, like worldwide, basically, attack China. And I'll let him answer it. Let's check this out and see who he blames
Sure.
for the situation we're in. Check it out.
Coalition against China in terms of trade here?
No. Well, China, look, they're very capable. And I don't blame China for what happened. I blame the people sitting right at this desk, right behind this desk or another desk. You get your choice of 7. I happen to pick the Resolute. But I blame the people sitting behind in this chair, behind this desk, for being stupid, incompetent, or not having courage. This should have been done years ago. This should have been done before Obama, in all fairness. Not only Biden, Obama. It should have been done many years ago. This started with the World Trade Organization, which was...
I mean, President Trump is just amazing, Ted. I mean, here he's saying he doesn't blame China. They're doing what's he's all, President Trump has always said, when America first, he said, I want countries to put themselves first, but my job is to put America first. He doesn't blame China for taking advantage of our weaknesses and the policies that we've had. He understands that's what business people do. And, but he said he blamed the people that sat behind that desk that he's at. And I think he's absolutely spot on. We didn't get here overnight, but people expect Donald Trump is going to solve all these political problems in his first 100 days. He's right. Donald Trump is absolutely right. Don't you think, Ted?
No, I think he is. And he doesn't have to gang up against China. I mean, other countries will do that. They'll come around and see the right thing to do. And, you're going to see that. And there was an opinion in I think it was Wall Street Journal yesterday, talking about divesting from China. And I had written a policy paper on this. It was back 4 years ago. I was ahead of the curve. I said we should take China on economically and remove their economic engine. And the best way to do that is to move manufacturing out of China. I named it the ABC Manufacturing Way, and that's anywhere but China. And get these companies to come near shore, offshore, or on our property in the United States domestically here. And you can do that with tax incentives. You can do that with other incentives, but move them out of China. If we break collectively, and it doesn't have to be a worldwide effort, but if we do it enough, China will get the message, because the things that they can do now that are, sabotaging all these things, or preparing to sabotage all the infrastructures and things like that, and they're building up a navy that will rival or exceed ours. The only way they can do that is because of the money they have. And so by going after their manufacturing, which is what Trump is talking about, he's incentivizing people to come here. And if one of my pet peeves is APIs, that's active pharmaceutical ingredients. Those are the basic compounds that go into your ibuprofens or antibiotics. Those are literally close to 100% are made in China. And I don't want to go into what's wrong with those products, but there's a great book that describes that by Rosemary Gibson. It was written in 2016. It's called China RX. And why we as a nation allow this to happen, that's all. I mean, we could talk a whole segment on the FDA and what they're doing, and they're actually poisoning us. And so we want to move all that out of there. And again, friend shore, near shore, domestically here. And if we do that, that economic signal will go to Xi. Xi is being challenged every day by what they call the Politburo. That's the Chinese Communist Party, because he's so strong-armed. And of course, they suppress all free speech. And he kind of takes a page from Putin, that if you don't go along with him, you'll fly off a building.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like you say, there are many reasons why, and you listed quite a few there, that we need to get our house in order. And that's what really Donald Trump is talking about.
It really is.
He really is talking about the United States playing the role that it should play, make America great again, all of that. And it's just amazing how much crap he gets for it. But, the thing that he's accomplished with these tariffs, and then of course the stock market doing what it did, and the country's coming, they're lining up to come every day. He's made the Democrat, and I didn't know this was even possible, but apparently he's making the Democrats nuttier than ever. I mean,
he's got their head spinning. It is so funny to watch them.
Yeah, we're going to talk about when we come back commercial break in a little bit, some more in detail on that, but they're just getting nuttier. But here's a point that I haven't really heard too many people make, Ted, and it's just my opinion, but I think I'm right, as I say. It's my opinionated fact.
It's your opinion.
It's my opinion, as I like to say, my opinionated fact. But
Opinionated fact. I like that. I have to use that on my wife and let you know how that works.
Well, good luck. Duck, man. Duck is all I can tell you. But he fired a shot across the bow of the Republicans in Congress as well with all this, because, you know, they're all getting geared up, worried about the midterms and all, which they should be. But he basically is showing them that the American people are behind him. He knows what he's doing. And if they don't get their act together, and by that I mean pass his agenda, then, you know, they better worry about what he says about them instead of worrying about the Democrats, because they will get defeated and replaced by maybe America First people if they don't shape up. So I really believe that he's fired a shot across the Republicans' bow as well.
He really has. And, you know, that's what I was kind of the inspiration for that article, the way I wrote it, about the Donald Trump tariff campaign. Because these guys that are complaining about what he's doing, he's being too hard, too brash. That's what we need at this point in time in our history, you know. And it's if you look throughout history, you never ever get the perfect leader, but you get the leader you need at that moment. And that's what we're having at this point. I think he's the strongest president I know I've ever had in my lifetime. And I think a lot of people will go along with that. But these Republicans that all of a sudden, like I said, it's their third or fourth day. If anybody's ever played sports and you had to go out there and do wind sprints for football, after 3 or 4 days, I mean, you want to quit, you're painful, but you work together as a team to get in condition. And this is where the Republicans need to understand. You're going through spring training and preseason training, and it is painful. There's going to be more pain to come, but keep in mind what you're trying to do. You're trying to win the championship for the season, and Trump's in there for 4 years, but he's really only got the first half, the 2 years. And it's interesting because you brought up how they're worried about the midterm. What are we in? We're in the beginning of April. The midterms are 18 months away, I think it is. 20 months away. They're 20 months away, but now they're worried about the midterm. If they worry more about the nation and do the job that they're hired to do, they don't have to worry about the midterm. But they're going to go around and do all these fundraisers all over the nation, and they won't focus on their district. It's about how much money you can raise. And this is where the American public, and this, as somebody was asking me what our podcast is about, and I said it's to educate, motivate, and the other one,
activate.
And I said I got it right last night.
Well, good, man. Good. Well, that is what it's all about.
It really is.
I tell people all the time, you hear it on the show, I say it all the time, it's up to us. It's up to the American people to take our country back from our own apathy. We've been apathetic for too long.
And complacent.
Ignorance and apathy, I call it. We've got to take it back. And we're going to do a quick commercial break. We're going to come back and talk about a little bit more about the president's agenda and what Congress needs to be doing. I hope you'll support our sponsors. If you want to become a sponsor, you'll see a little tagline that says "Contact Freddie" during the course of our show, and do that and become a sponsor of our show. We'll be right back, Ted.
Although the owner of Lewis Oil Company maintains she is 29, Lewis Oil turns 60 years old in June. Chevron would like to recognize the North Florida second-generation family-owned business, celebrating its growth and staying power. Lewis Oil Company maintains significant on-hand supplies, strategically located fuel depots, a delivery fleet, on-site service, fuel card locks, and convenience stores. Lewis Oil Company understands its responsibility in the local economy by providing service and delivery on demand and in crisis. As a first responder for 18 Florida counties and the Southeast from Texas to Virginia, we are proud of this rare accomplishment. Lewis Oil delivers.
This is Ward Scott, and I want to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. The Ward Scott Files premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care.
Meldon Law, the only official injury partner of the Florida Gators.
The Ward Scott Files Gold sponsors are Lewis Oil Company,
Shoot GTR,
On the Spot Dry Cleaners, R&R Construction, and Style Cuts. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, www.wardscottfiles.com, and click on the Advertise Here banner on the right side of the page, or call my friend Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the Ward Scott Files. And remember, if you like the show, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. May God have mercy on your soul.
Ward, that very much surprises me that you've never been tased.
You can't handle the truth.
All bees poop.
A warthog. He's going to come up the steps. Here he comes. Oh my goodness, and he's huge. Hello, boy. Wonder if we can pet him. Hi, boy.
Can we touch him? No, don't.
Help me! Help! Help!
And we're back. And for a minute there, I thought that old warthog was sneaking up behind you, Ted, out there in California. Watch out. Watch your back.
No telling what kind of critters lay in these woods behind me.
Well, if you're just tuning into the show, ladies and gentlemen, we're glad you're here. I call it our pirate podcast, and Captain Ted Yoho and the old salty dog, John Martin. Well, Ted is out in California right now, and I'm in a bunker here in Fort Hawthorne. You know, you can see Trump has got my back today. But I want to talk a little bit about this is a story from Breitbart about Trump's legislative agenda in Congress. You know, when we went to break, I said, Ted, that Donald Trump had fired a shot across the bow of the Republican Congress, and we kind of were talking about the brief window of time Trump really has to get things done. And one of the major things that they got to get done is this agenda with the tax cuts and all of that. And the first thing was to pass a budget resolution.
Right.
It's a little bit complicated. I don't think the average person understands how you got to try to bypass the whole 60 vote majority you would need in the Senate. So could you kind of bring us up to speed as to where we are, where we're trying to get to, and what's happening with all that?
Sure. It goes to what they call reconciliation. And this is like you just brought up. You can bypass the rules and the parliamentarian rules in the Senate, and you can move this legislation. It's not the best way to do it, because what it really means, if you fall into that, Congress in the whole House and Senate didn't do their job. There's 12 appropriations. Get them passed, get them out of committee, get them passed bipartisanly. But what happens is when you get CRs that have been built up over the last 15 years, and we go into that mode, you're on emergency mode. So to be able to get a budget and to go through reconciliation where you don't have to have the 60 vote, you can just pass this. This is a very good thing in the sense that the end product should be better. And when you have bills like this, there's going to be stuff in there that's good and there's stuff that's bad. And this is a fault of the process of Congress not getting their job done in a timely manner. And that's another segment I can talk to, because Eric Cantor and I went around on this when I was a freshman. Anyways, so Trump is doing that. He's delivering on that. And keep in mind what he wanted to do. Keep in mind how much debt we are in as a nation. It's almost $37 trillion, paying $3.2 billion just to service the debt on our credit card. Anybody that's got a credit card out there, if you don't pay it off, that's your interest payments. And, the way we are going, we can't afford it. And so the cuts have to come, but you can't cut enough to get our debt under control. You have to grow the economy. And this, again, the Jobs Act and the tax break they've made permanent. this is a big step forward into that, because that's going to invite businesses back. The other thing is Trump's put tariffs on these businesses that are creating products in other countries, shipping them here because they're using cheap labor, cheap materials. And so that's going to incentivize them coming back here. So those two things together are going to lower our debt, improve our economy, but we're going through that painful moment. And keep in mind, there's countries that want America to fall, and they're doing all these other nefarious things with our infrastructure, our banking system, our telecommunication. And heck, I think I've shared with you, my wife and I, we got hacked into, I can't say China, but it was Asian characters, because I was very outspoken against Xi Jinping and the Communist Party. And we got messages from the embassy at a reception through their goons, I'll say, that came up and told my team that they said, you need to tell your congressman to back off of China and Xi Jinping. And the next day we had 1,500, my wife had 1,500 emails that were all Asian character. I know I didn't send those. So they are. I mean, they're going to play a heavy hand, and it's going to take somebody like Trump that is brash, and he's not predictable. And so the people, they don't know which way he's going to go. And that picture of you with Xi Jinping reading The Art of the Deal is perfect. He's like, I'm trying to figure this guy out.
Absolutely. Well, I'm hoping they don't totally figure him out myself, because but Trump said on Truth. Before I say that, I just want to let people know how close things are in Congress. The resolution we're talking about passed 216 to 214 because two Republicans, Mr. Massey, we've talked about him before, and Victoria Spartz, they voted with the Democrats, but not because they're for them. They just want more cuts. But it is what it is. But this is what Trump posted on Truth Social. He said, "Congratulations to the House on the passage of a bill that sets the stage for one of the greatest and most important signings in the history of our country." He said that, among other things, it will be the largest tax and regulation cuts ever contemplated. Make America great again. So what do you think? Is the president right about that?
Yeah, go back to his first term when we passed that bill, the American Jobs and Tax Cut Bill. You saw the economy turn around. You saw the demographic breakdown of America. If you looked at every sector, every race, gender, of course, we had two genders back then mainly. The economic income to these people, their lifestyle went up. They had this euphoric, I won't say euphoric, but they had a feel that, they're finally getting ahead of the debt ball in their own personal lives. And this is what's going to happen now. The thing that erodes us is the confidence of how long is it going to stay. Businesses, they make projections out into the future, 3, 4, 5 years, and before they spend money, well, what's the tax ramifications going to be this? If I make this investment in a building or a new plant, what's it going to be 3 years from now if this tax bill is not made permanent? This is something that'll bring stability to the market. More companies will be more willing to invest in America. And if they do that, there's more jobs, there's more revenue for people. And I think you'll see prices come down over a period of time.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the gender thing. We're going to talk directly about that in the story in a minute. But I don't know if
I did that so you had a segue.
Well, yeah, I don't know if I've told you this or not, Ted, but as an old Southern boy, we solved that pronoun issue many, many years ago.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah. And I'll give you an example. I'm speaking to all of Congress right now. Y'all better get your act together. So we just come. Everybody is in the y'all. You know what I mean?
I know where you're going with this one.
It's just y'all. So y'all out there, whatever, get your act together, because I wonder if we're ever going to see budget cuts. Really, Ted. I mean, I just don't know. But we did solve the pronoun problem.
No, you are. You are going to see it. Think of what he did with USAID. He came in there with a wrecking ball and just evaporated it. And I never thought that would happen. I got to a point of, I guess, appeasement personally. Like, there's some good programs. I'm going to work to keep the good programs. The bad programs, I'm going to leave that for somebody else to get rid of, because there was so much contention under there. Trump came in there and did it. He's going to do this with the Department of Education. And if you look at how he went after the education department, He's voluntarily asking for people to resign, quit, take early retirement. He's doing this now to the USDA. The USDA has over 100,000 employees. They're going to shrink it down to 3 regional offices around the nation, close down the USDA building in DC is what they're talking about. This has got people reeling. So if you get all these people out of government that they're on health care, they're on retirement programs, they're on the sick days, they're off family leave, and now they just passed they want the bill, that proxy voting bill where you don't have to show up for 12 weeks. So the wife can take off 12 weeks, or the mother can take off 12 weeks, and then the father can take off for 12 weeks. I think that's 6 months total. And so they're shrinking these programs down, and it's going to take some time. That's why these Republicans cannot get weak knee. That's why the voters can't start saying, well, it's pretty harsh. We need harsh now, because if we get to the point in this nation where we go broke, all these programs go away tomorrow.
Well,
I want people to understand that.
About going broke. And one thing I never hear anybody talk about this at all anymore is, we talk about the deficit, and you're right, it's like 36 trillion, whatever. But
Right.
There's another deficit that we never talk about that is scary. It's so big, and that is the unfunded mandates.
Oh, yeah.
There's estimates that it's over 200 trillion. And I'm talking about what we're going to have to pay out Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all this kind of stuff that we're committed to paying. That
Retirement programs.
Funding and other
Right.
programs and stuff. So
In that mandatory spending is our debt, or is the service on our debt to the interest payments that we have to pay.
There is
Those
a
are mandatory.
way beyond. We can't even. It's not even hardly worth talking about, because until we get to 36 trillion under control, we're never going to even approach the other. But we're in much worse shape than people think.
You watch, yeah, we really are. You watch this economy and the markets. When you start seeing that debt coming down, people are going to be shocked around the world, like, you know what? They really did it. They really tackled this, and it's starting to come down. Now, the trick will be to send leaders in there that will keep this pressure on what this nation spends and how they spend it. There's so many programs, as you know, and then they expose just in the UN. One of my things that I was really after was the food stamp program. Carol and I were on food stamps for six weeks, and it was a great benefit. It was embarrassing for us to be on there as, young buck like I was. But it was so nice to have it. But there's over $22 billion in fraud in that program. And when you talk to people, it's like, well, you're going to take money away from starving people. No, I don't want to do that. But I want the people that are riding the system, I want them off of it. And I think the majority of Americans feel that way. Unless they're a Democrat on the Ag Committee that was in Congress between 2013 and 2021, they had blinders on. They just couldn't accept that wasn't true. That was a falsity.
Well, Ted, the enemies of America and America First movement and the MAGA and Donald Trump and all that, which I include on the darkest side, China, and even the people who are just that seems like the Democratic Party now, they're not afraid that these tariffs won't work. What they're afraid of is that they will actually work, and we will return to a constitutional republic. And they
really are.
That's what they're really scared of. Not that they won't work. They're scared that they will.
Well, that's a good point you brought up, because if you look at the agenda of the previous party administration, it was all anti-American. It was the open borders. It was the dilution of the majority race in the country. And I don't want to say just a color of the country, a mindset of the country, their political beliefs, their the belief in the country, the constitutional republic. They were trying to dilute that. And I think you've got that one soundbite coming up from one of our soon-to-be favorite people on the left. That is, just like you said, they're getting wackier as time goes on, talking about y'all.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that in just a moment. But the question that I have, Ted, is that with this whole thing with the president's agenda and Congress, will they rise to the occasion? I'm talking about mostly the Republicans. Now, will they rise to the occasion? And if they don't, and I hope they do, but if they don't, the next question is, what will we, the American people, do about it? Because I don't want to make it sound like if they don't do it that we're done. Because as long as we have the American people that will rise up, and I'm not talking about revolution, I'm talking about political revolution.
Right.
Because we cannot absolve ourselves. I keep coming back to that. We have got to hold these congressmen and women feet to the proverbial fire. And if we don't do it, it's our fault.
Well, there's so many of them. They're career politicians, or they even come in there for the position. They come in there for the perks and the position. The perks are, you get accolades everywhere you go, unless you're voted on something, people are throwing stuff at you. They get to travel the world. They get paid more money than they ever have. And so those people are there to serve themselves. You need people that at this point in time in our country, they're here to serve a nation. And you're going to go and make some tough decisions. And you have to go back to your district and explain to your voters why you voted this way and why you didn't like it either. But you're looking 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And I think as we raise our gaze of where this nation is and where it's going, people will accept that. You just brought up the unfunded liability, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Hell, I'm going to be collecting my first Social Security check in May. Yeah, I want it. I paid into it all my life. And for the last probably 30 years, I paid the max that you can pay. And I knew the money would come back to me. But you talk to a young person today, do you think you'll collect Social Security in the future? And I think everyone I've asked that's been under the age of 25 said no. I said, doesn't that just tick you off?
Yeah, that's sad, but you can't blame them for being skeptical.
No, and I said, doesn't that tick you off? And they said, well, I don't know what else I can do. I got to pay those taxes. I said, yeah, but you ought to get on your representatives. And this goes back to, the people that you said are elected, hold them accountable. Those people are no different than you and I. And it's not their position. They're there to serve. And if they're not serving, throw them out. That's what we did when we ran against the incumbent.
Well, this next story we're going to talk about, and it encompasses, I've got several mixed in together, but it really begs the question as to how far are we, when I say we, I'm talking about the American people, are we going to allow these people to go? Because people may not be hearing what's happening out in Colorado. And this comes from what's a publication called Desert News. Colorado bill could strip parents of custody for misgendering their children. Now, people are going to, if they haven't heard this, they're going to believe I'm lying because this just sounds crazy. But a bill in Colorado making its way through this, it's passed the House, but it needs to go to the Senate and be signed by the governor. When the state legislature, that would create legal grounds, check this out, for the state to revoke custody of parents who misgender their children. Now, listen to this, Ted. I know you've probably heard this, but I want our people to really hear this. The text of this bill states this: dead naming, which means your name is Ted Yoho, right? So right. Your mother gave you that name, Ted Yoho, Ted. And so that's your dead name. In other words, that's the name that your parents, that's what this means. And so their other name might be, Sally wants to be Sammy, then we're going to call her that. But dead naming, misgendering, or threaten to publish material related to an individual's gender-affirming health care services will be deemed corrosive control. So They're saying that parents who want their children to go by the name they gave them and the gender they were born with will be guilty of corrosive control. And this will come in influence in court. Check this out. When making child custody decisions, the best interest of the child for the purposes of parenting time. Bottom line, what this means, if it carried to its fruition, Ted, is that the state can come in and take your child, the custody of your child away from you, and I guess award it to someone else or the state if you want them to simply go by the name you gave them and the gender they're born at birth. It's just unbelievable.
All right. A couple things come up about this. It is a liberal, left, progressive, anti-American policy. These things come right out of the UN. And if you look at the UN, there's the Child Bill of Rights, a child's Bill of Rights. And it says the parents aren't the custody of the child. It's really the state. And it goes through all these things. You can't do spanking. You can't do all these things. And so this thing insidiously creeps in. Do you suppose the voters in Colorado voted for this? Or is this one of the things that just kind of crept into the system? And all of a sudden, you want to call your child this? They're all, oh, no, that's corrosive. And I'll tell you how local this is. My granddaughter, my last one, born in Port St. Lucie, they came out, and it's a boy, and they asked the parents, what gender do you want to put on the birth certificate? This is in Florida. And I'm like, what do you mean, what gender? I mean, they got external plumbing or internal plumbing. It's pretty simple.
Let me see. I'll get back to you.
But this is the same thing that went on in Virginia when the parents, all of a sudden they're hearing about this insidious thing about the teachers and the educators pushing kids to this transgender garbage. And the parent says, you don't have the right to do that. And all of a sudden, Merrick Garland says those are domestic terrorism. This is what's happening. And this is the I don't want to say the deep state, but this is the liberal progressive caustic movement that the Soros is in. China's probably doing this, Iran, Russia. All these people are infiltrating on social media in our society, and they're going to the teachers union and saying, this is what we're going to start doing. Wait till the parents find out, and then it'll come public, and we're going to bash them and tell them they're corrosive, and we're going to tell them they don't have the rights over their children. This is kind of garbage. The liberal progressive movement that Biden Harris were the pinnacle of it at their time. Just thank God that Harris didn't win. This you would have had a police state. And I know people think Trump's got a police state now with what he's doing, but we have to clean up a mess that was brought to us over the last Obama Biden years.
Well, yeah, you mentioned Harris, and I don't know if you saw the latest on her, but
I try not to.
Yeah. Well, they had that Wisconsin big election with Supreme Court, right? And apparently she tried to chime in and work hard for the Democratic side. No big surprise there. But what may be a surprise is that the state Democratic Party told her no. They did not want her there. They would not even release the story that she had offered to help until a couple of weeks after the election. But they told her no. So I find that pretty
She wasn't feeling the love, huh?
He wasn't feeling the love. But, this thing, and you're right about what's happening out there in Colorado. It's happening more and more everywhere.
It's happening everywhere.
Creep up, like you just said, in the great state of Florida. And
it's happening in the churches.
Absolutely. And my question is, will we allow this stuff to happen? I keep coming back to we, Ted, because we, the American people, have allowed this to happen by our ignorance and apathy. And the only way we're going to turn it around is to do what we always say: get educated, get motivated, and get activated. And I want to play another video. You would think this may not be related, but it is. In Illinois, this was a couple of weeks ago, especially in Chicago, they're cracking down on homeschool people and basically saying they're going to come in and investigate them and all that and find out what you're teaching and everything else. They don't care about the test scores, which the test scores for homeschool children are through the roof compared to public schools, but they want control. And I'm just playing a brief snippet, but I want people to pay attention to who is speaking up for children in this video. Let's play it.
Sure.
Demonize and criminalize parents who take up the mission to homeschool. HB 2827 recommends adding oversight, regulation, and prosecution for homeschooling parents who miss a filing deadline or an education portfolio review. This is another pathway to target and criminalize minority communities.
And there you have it, Ted. I wanted to, I don't like to make things about race, but I do want to point out some things. The Democrats better be careful, because here you have a woman there talking, and the people behind her in Illinois that is educating, motivated, and is activated.
She sure is.
saying that this homeschool bill, where they're going to crack down on homeschooling, is literally an attack on minority people who are simply trying to raise their children and rise them above what's happening in public schools. So when I see this, I get pissed off about what's happening in Colorado and what's happening in Chicago, but I'm also lifted because people like that lady you see in that video are waking up.
They really are. And she brought up communities of color. It goes beyond that. This is something that's going throughout America. And this, again, did anybody vote on these bills to say, hey, what do you think about homeschooling? Is it bad and all that? And we need to change that. This is something that got brought up by the teachers union, again, being funded by those nefarious organizations that are trying to destroy this country. The American people are waking up to this. And this is not just in minority communities. This is, we saw it in Newberry with the charter school that went out there, the fight against that through the school boards. And this is, again, as you said, people need to be educated, motivated, and activated. And that's good that you're bringing these things up, because this is going around in every small community across this nation by these activists. And some people will be complacent. Some people are just, they're so busy in their life, they're just like, well, it's a school board. I know they're going to do what's right for my children. No, they're indoctrinating is the role here. And, that the parent, and this falls back to the UN, this is not your child. It's a property of the state. And people just need to go on the UN website. And this is where you have organizations like the World Health Organization that Trump has pulled out of. And I support him on that. And I was in Congress, and when he pulled out in his first term, we're in a committee hearing, and they had ambassadors, and I think they might even had the Secretary General from the UN saying how bad this was. And so that was going around, and I was the only one says, I'm a different mindset. I think this is a good thing. We should not be dictated by a World Health Organization that we did not elect to tell us how to respond to a pandemic and things like that. And this is what Trump is doing. A lot of people will say how bad all this stuff is. Other leaders will say, well, yeah, we should be listening to him, but they don't do anything about it. Trump is doing something about it. And he's motivated people in the populace to stand up, and he's emboldened them to stand up and fight back against this. And when you have a leader as strong as he is, people say, you know what, he's right, and I'm going to stand up in my community and fight back. And I hope this is a movement that continues, and that I hope it continues and inspires the jelly bone or backbone representatives in Congress to say, we're on his team and we're going to do this.
Yeah, well, while you were talking, it just reminded me of something I said earlier in the show that it applies to so many things, like with the tariffs, but now with like this homeschooling issue in Illinois and Chicago, Illinois. They're not afraid. They're being the left. They're not afraid that that this won't work, that homeschooling won't work. They're afraid that it will. That's what
I think you're absolutely right.
More I'm beginning to see that the left is more afraid that Donald Trump's policies and all of this stuff, and even things like our show, will actually work. That's what they're afraid of, because if they lose control of the kids, then they lose political control, and that's what they're terrified of.
Well, go back to Obama when he first came in. We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming America. Look how much transformation happened in his 8 terms and 8 years and his 4 years of controlling the Biden administration. Look at how much change, radical change in America. We never had this problem before then. I mean, we weren't a perfect nation, obviously, but what you just brought up is really the crux of their going crazier, because they are seeing this opportunity of fundamentally transforming America slip away. The Obamanization of America has been, that movement has been stopped by Donald Trump and the people that have supported him, and it gets us back to the basics. And it's always when things get real complicated in life or business, go back to your basics, and that's a constitutional republic with the 10 Bill of Rights Amendment. That's the very basics, and let's rebuild from there.
Absolutely. Well, we're about to run out of time, but before we do, I want to play a close little snippet of a video because you wonder how low will they go. I'm going to show you. And this lady, if you had served in Congress with her, I'm sure y'all would have been as close friends as you and Ocasio-Cortez.
Wait a minute. Before you go here, I want people to go back to the show we had a couple weeks ago where this representative out of Texas was sitting down and had a very articulate interview before she got into the United States House of Representatives, and the transformation that she went through. And this shows you that the Democrats, the liberal progressive, they drink something that just makes them go bonkers.
Absolutely. So let's play this. This is none other than Jasmine Crockett talking about the border issue and illegal immigrants. Check it out and we'll close the show.
Country and educate people about what immigrants do for this country, or the fact that we are a country of immigrants.
Right.
The fact is, ain't none of y'all trying to go and farm right now. Okay, so I'm lying. Raise your hands. You're not. We done picking cotton. We are. You can't pay us enough to find a plantation.
I mean, like you brought up that point, Ted, that we played a video before of her and her real self, I suppose. But she's doing all that shucking and jiving up there.
She surely is.
I got to tell you, as someone from the South, and, I don't talk about my personal life that much, but my wife is mixed and I've got black grandchildren and everything. I find that very offensive. And I'd love to hear from some of our audience out there, African-American audience, that is insulting to me. But this idea that because she's basically saying that black people are good for cotton picking and now they're not, but Mexicans, I guess, may be. It's just absolutely insulting.
That really is racist, to say, well, who's going to pick our food if we don't keep these illegals in here? This goes back to Congress. I had a great guest worker program, but we couldn't get it supported. And I was on the ag committee and I brought up working on the farms, and we had the black representatives and the Democrats saying, we don't want our children working on the farm. And I'm like, I've worked in agriculture since I was 15. I loaded produce on trucks. I was a large animal veterinarian in the farm every day, 5 to 7 days a week. We were putting in 60 to 90 hours a week sometimes. And I love the work on the farm. And so they're saying, you're too good to work on the farm? Well, by God, you better think where your food comes from. And that's slipping away. That's about a month-long segment talking about agriculture in America. But this is just hypocrisy at its best. And she's playing to the base. She's placating them and just trying to gin up. We ain't going to be picking no cotton. And again, her persona has changed from what she was in that interview, and it's just all phony. And she's just trying to rally people and get them angry, and it serves no one. So
yeah, I hear you. Well, we're pretty much out of time. I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as Ted and I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Ted, I hope you have a blessed weekend out there in California. I'll look for one of them texts that you need rescue and consider it's not a scam or something.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I appreciate
please like what we're doing, share what we're doing far and wide, and let's keep that republic like Ben Franklin said there. And everybody have a great weekend and come back and see us.
Thumbs up to the game.